Well, hello, my name's Kev, Norfolk Boy here, and these are the instructions on how to make some of these nice little beach huts that I created. This was my very first prototypes here, so obviously the ones that are being dished out now are the much more up-to-date and sorted ones, but this is basically what they will look like. So there we are, two 00 gauge beach huts. And these are the instructions on how to make them. Okay, so to begin with, as soon as you've printed out your PDF of the model of the two beach huts, you'll notice that there's a line just across the bottom and it says cut along the line. So that's the first thing we need to do. We need to cut this down across that line so that this piece is separate from this. So once this is cut away from that part, we can just put that part aside, and we now have this sheet of card. What you need to do is print out on an alright sort of thickness of card, basically, that you can buy from anywhere. And then this stuff is 1mm card that you can buy, crafting card, but you don't have to buy it. You can always get yourself some cereal packets and join them together. You're looking to get about 1mm, and joining two bits of a Kellogg's cornflakes packet or something like that, you would end up with roughly, when they're stuck together back to back, around the same thickness, around about 1mm. So that's just a cheap way of doing it. If it's not quite big enough to go across, you can always cut down here somewhere and just put that piece on and then use some more for somewhere else. But obviously it is easier if you can get yourself some of this crafting card, which is really quite cheap on eBay or Amazon or anywhere else, come to think about it. I don't know, even crafts shops may sell it. But anyway, you just lie that down, and what we need to do is just glue this onto this card anywhere you like. If you want to save the piece of card at the bottom, you can always stick it down there. And what I'm going to use here is Pritt Stick. But you don't have to use this. I mean, you can obviously get a much better bond perhaps with crafting glue. However, this stuff is just as good as long as you give it time to dry. So I'm going to use Pritt Stick in this case. So to do this, we just need to start at the corners and just make sure that we get the glue nice and evenly on the card. So we'll start off around the edges. I don't have to go too far down because obviously the whole card's not being used. And then just gently that way. And then again that way. Just gently, not too hard, so that as to evenly spread out the glue, so there's not too many lumps or anything that's going to be sitting underneath the card when it's glued on. Yeah. Lovely jubbly. Okay. Once that's done, all we need to do is screw on the lid, which I can't do. There you go. And get the card, and try not to make sure you've got no glue on your fingers. And nice and firmly and gently stick down your card on top of your 1mm card. Once that's done, before you go on with anything else, you really do need to let this dry. So I would normally do this and then leave it for at least 4 hours, if not longer. It's entirely up to you how long you do it. Excuse me. But if you don't let this dry on top of this card, then when you cut it, you'll find all sorts of problems you'll get. So very important, just let the whole thing dry off before you start to do the next stage. So the first thing that we have to do is obviously just cut all these little pieces out. And just a little tip, the hardest part to cut out really are these little window cutouts. And the best way to do these is to actually use the ruler on the outside of where you're going to cut to help keep the actual printed part as clean as possible. And then going from the corners with a really sharp knife, I can't say any more than that. A sharp knife is definitely needed when it comes to this part. And then gently start cutting from each corner, not too far. You can start to feel it go through, and do the same from the corner here. So from the same corner again, not too hard. These knives can sometimes be a bit of a pain. I have several of these crafting knives and they really are good, as when they do get blunt you can snip them off and you've got another piece, and they're quite sharp. The only trouble with them is these locks are not too great on them. I have got another one that's a screw-on one which seems to be a little bit better, but anyway, less pressure and just lightly score until you get down and through, and just keep going all the way around. So I'll show you the finished in a minute. Before I do carry on cutting out mine, I will show you this, which I'm sure quite a few people would have seen, and these are absolutely brilliant, well worth the investment. They make it even better to cut out small pieces like this because you can get right in and see exactly where you are, make sure you're not going over the line. They're absolutely brilliant. So if you are like me and need glasses and it's quite handy to have one of these to magnify things, then I really do recommend one. This one's seen better days, bless it, but it's still doing it nonetheless. If I just plug this in, you've also got the light, which helps even more. Anyway, moving on. So once you've got your cuts from each corner all the way around, then you can just get your knife from the corner again and just slowly go around it all, keeping as steady as you can. It will start to feel like it's coming loose, and with a little bit of luck you should be able to push. If it gets stuck on, then use a knife again just to clear the bit that's holding it, and it should pop straight out. There we go. Now we can clean up the edges slightly with a knife gently, and then move on to the next stage. So this next step is optional when you cut these little windows out. It's entirely up to you. I have a Sharpie pen, but you can use a felt tip closest to the blue that you've got, and just run along the edges with your pen. This is only if you want to, it's optional. You don't have to, you can leave it as it is, and that just makes the edge blue as well, although it doesn't in particularly matter, and you can do it in other ways, but it's just an idea that I thought I'd just pop in. Okay, so I've cut those two windows out. I've smudged mine a little bit by using a Sharpie. Should have used a felt tip pen, they're a lot easier, but never mind. It's this is just for putting together purposes, so it doesn't really matter too much. Okay, so the next stage is just to cut all the rest of these pieces out, every single piece, including these little yellow supports and fence supports and all the rest of it, and then once they're all cut out, we can go ahead and start assembling. Just another quick tip here. You can use scissors to cut out some of the bigger pieces. You might find it easier, as long as they're really, really sharp scissors, of course. You don't have to use a knife for all of them, although the smaller parts you probably will need to. So once you've cut out all the main parts on the card, you then have your thinner piece of card that you cut off originally. So this is the roof. I'll get my words out properly again in a minute. My roof copings to go on top, and the fences, so I'm just going to cut those out. Okay, so we have all our pieces cut out. Magic, lovely jubbly. We'll start with the decking, and if we can just turn that upside down. You may be seeing this speeded up, but here we go. I'm going to use this pot of glue and one of these little applicators, which is rather handy, but you can use whatever you like, obviously. Probably be a slight edit there, as I had a little bit of a blockage in the applicator, so we'll put the front one on first. Okay, once you've got all your sides on, just leave that to dry for about 10 minutes or so. We can move on to the next stage. Right, you'll notice in the next section that I'll be showing putting the hut together without what I'm doing right now. I'm just putting this bit in beforehand, showing you that popping the curtains in is a damn good idea first before start to put the building together, which is what I'm going to be doing in the next section. That's why you can see half my building pulled apart. So I'm just showing you this part just to say pop your curtains in first. You just put them behind the actual windows that you cut out, and that gives that 3D effect, and then we can move on to the next stage of putting the building together. Actually, while we're leaving that to dry, to be fair, we can be moving on to putting the hut together. So I'm going to run a little bit of glue down the edge of the front part. And you can leave it to go tacky a little bit, is always great. And then we can just, any which way you like, whoops, glue that onto the edge. And mostly good glue will hold it up there. However, we've got some nice little supports, and if we run some glue down each edge of these supports, as you can see my side's already fallen over, we can then sit a support on the edge like that. And that will help matters in getting it all straight. And then we can leave that to dry. Once that's dry, that'll be nice and sturdy, ready for the next side, which we can use another one for, and so on and so on. You can use these supports as much as you like. It's entirely up to you, or you don't have to use them at all, but they're there. Okay, once that's dry, we can go back to our decking, which will also should be dry, and we can then glue along the bottom of our model and then pop him on top of the decking. The supports in if you wish, just to help while drying. Okay, so that's pretty much dry enough. I'm not using the quickest drying glue here, but nonetheless, I'm going to run some along the bottom. And just sit in the back part of the hut, flush with the back. Pop our hut onto the deck and let that dry. Okay, let's have another go. And it's coming out this time. Okay. roof on, because it's not going to matter if there's a slight gap at the top, because we have our coping to go on the top. There we are. There we are. And then this nice little strip that we have for the top, just run up down the middle. There is a slight line down the middle. We'll sit it on the edge of the ruler is what I normally do. I can do this on camera and then just bend like so until you get it in a shape you feel is going to sit nicely on top of your roof. I think that's going to be okay once there's glue on. So we'll just glue this part. I'm having real trouble with my glue today, I really am. So there may be quite a few edits here and there where I'm struggling to get my glue to come out. Here it is. This glue is a little bit old now. Could do with some new. And there we are. Okay, the next part is to put on the fascias. So I'm going to put some glue on those. And pop those on the front and also on the back. A little bit more awkward. Hands are getting a bit sticky. Quite handy to wash your hands every now and again, I think, really. Your glue gets stuck to your fingers and then they start to pull things off and like on again. But there we are. We now have that assembled, so we can just put that to one side. It comes to the last little bit, which is the fence. And if we can pop some glue on these, or even better, we can pop them on here, or the glue on the back of the fence themselves. You really do need some dry fingers, not like me really whilst doing this, but I've not got the best glue applicator today. It's being a real pain. I'll just run some around there like that. Pop a piece of card in, and then fold over the fence. Let that dry. Same with this one. Stuck to my finger again. all fun of building these things, all for the fun. A little bit of glue on your fingers. If anything does get a little bit ruined, it doesn't matter. These buildings will look more weathered. So there we are. The two fences are now done. Once they're dry, or for demonstration purpose, I won't wait for them to dry. I'll just stick the glue on the bottom. Whoops. And stick the fence on the side. Same other side. But there we have it. There's our little beach hut.